Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We have just had a double earthquake burst on the Pacific Plate, the most notable release of seismic energy since that magnitude 8.8 megaquake on July 29, 2025. It started with this magnitude 6.4 there, down at the bottom of the Pacific Plate, rubbing up against the Antarctic plate, and then less than an hour later, we had this magnitude 6.8 pop off just to the southwest of the location of the magnitude 8.8 megaquake. So these two simultaneously shaking the Pacific Plate together, speaking to the fact that either A, there's still a lot of tectonic activity around and in the Pacific Plate and overall the Ring of Fire due to that magnitude 8.8 megaquake, or that there are larger plate shifts that are yet to unfold here in this magnitude 8.8 megaquake may have just been perhaps a warm-up for something bigger. You will also notice, notably, that New York had a magnitude 3 earthquake. So New York just got a shake a few hours ago. And we see the epicenter for that right there, just outside of Manhattan Island near Patterson. And this is not a big earthquake, it's just a magnitude 3. But according to the historic seismicity, we really haven't seen any earthquakes under New York City recently. And I did want to point out just an interesting observation, take this for what it's worth, but you'll notice that we have this mid-ocean ridge here, okay? And this is where the plates are spreading apart. Well, down here in South America, we also have this mid-ocean ridge. And we have a smaller plate that is in between here, the Pacific, and we see it subducting under South America. Okay, the question is, why is the oceanic plate here subducting under South America, which drive these huge earthquakes, when you have a very similar situation here? This oceanic crust is more dense. The continental crust there is lighter, less dense. And so this is all moving together, but fundamentally, you are going to have this on top, more buoyant, and this down below, this oceanic crust, denser, less buoyant. And so there's no reason why you can't have this oceanic crust slip underneath this North American craton there. And this is the overall North American plate, but there is still a differentiation in between. And so if you look at this continental shelf margin, that's a pretty steep drop. That's the potential for some big earthquakes there. There are certainly some big faults there. The question is, when were they last active? This magnitude 3, just a little sneak peek at perhaps what is possible in terms of earthquake activity on the eastern side of the United States. Because keep in mind, we also have the New Madrid fault zone, which is a failed rifting valley that was then covered with sedimentary materials. And when that kind of slumps down, you get these magnitude 7, magnitude 8 quakes every now and then. So this whole picture that we're looking at, the entire Earth, is much more dynamic than our current models of understanding would lead us to believe if we take in a larger geologic time scale. Here we have Google Earth, and I have this location of the magnitude 8.8 megaquake there, and then the epicenter for this magnitude 6.8 earthquake right there. First clocked in as a magnitude 7 according to the USGS, and I jumped out of my chair. I was like, there's the magnitude 7 aftershock that I've been predicting, but it was very quickly reduced to a magnitude 6.8 as more data came in. That is still quite a bit larger than a magnitude 6.4, which is that other earthquake in the sequence, and actually the first earthquake to pop off. We see that there was at 4:57 a.m. Universal Time, whereas our Kamchatka 6.8 aftershock was 5:37 a.m. Universal Time. And I put this line in between them, and I just think this is really interesting because it cuts across nearly the entire Pacific Plate. And so we see it go through three interesting features. First, we see this broad plateau there. It cuts through that, kind of rectilinear in shape, just an odd geologic feature. And then it cuts through this first dragon. We've talked about this a little bit on the channel. Then also cuts through this second dragon here, which is interesting as it relates to Ryo Tsuzuki's prophecy, which did partially come true, by the way. A tsunami did hit Japan from a very large earthquake in July 2025. It's interesting. To this epicenter for the magnitude 6.8, but also What's perhaps the most interesting feature of this line connecting these earthquakes is that it cuts precisely through the bend in the Hawaiian seamount chain. So going all the way back in time, dozens of millions of years, this hotspot has been active, and this line going from these two magnitude 6.4 and 6.8 earthquakes cuts directly through that, along with these other interesting features. So it's just kind of telling me intuition-wise that the entire Pacific plate is currently working as one at this moment in time, and some indication of that are the energetic conditions that we saw unfold right before that magnitude 8.8 earthquake. And I've pulled up our real-time solar wind for that rough time period. It ends right at 2300 on the 29th. This is universal time, so effectively right when that megaquake occurred. But look right here, here's where we have that northward aligned solar wind. The black line is the total field strength. It went up to about 13 nanotesla. The red line is the southward component. When it's positive, it means it has a northward configuration, which is a totally different magnetic field and electric circuit dynamic for the Earth than when it is southward. Now, as many of you may recall, we were tracking these Schumann resonances back in the end of July because we saw this triple wave of increasing power in the Schumann resonances on the 25th of July, the 26th, and on the 27th. And in fact, we had a fourth and final wave on the 28th of July. This is the 29th. Here we have the 30th. This is right when that magnitude 8.8 megaquake occurred. We see this precursor anomaly there just about an hour beforehand. But we had three increasing waves, and this was interesting because we had fair weather conditions at Tomsk, Russia at this moment in time. And that means that the global electric circuit was basically unperturbed, and that where did this energy come from? Especially because it's that foundational mode at about 8 hertz overall. A little bit of higher frequency stuff too, going up to mode 2, especially with this third and fourth wave, it did reach those higher frequencies, which is in that pre-earthquake range, 20 to 30 hertz. But you'll notice most of the energy was actually sub 8 hertz in this geomagnetic pulsation range, and that would be 5 hertz or less. These are the frequencies that attenuate the least. And so we saw some interesting solar wind configurations at that moment in time, which indicate that these resonances may have been carried in by the solar wind. And as a result of that northward configuration of the solar wind that we had at that moment in time, we had these really strong Birkeland currents. You get very powerful Birkeland currents, these field of line currents, just these flows of energy through the auroral circuit and also through the magnetic field and the dipole of the Earth itself under northward aligned solar wind. We had these Schumann resonances, we see these geomagnetic pulsations. Effectively, the sun, through the solar wind, delivered a lot of current and vibration to the Earth on the 25th, bigger wave on the 26th, bigger wave on the 27th, and then again we go here to the 28th, the biggest wave, and then we have this period where it cools off, it backs off, and boom, we get our magnitude 8.8 megaquake. But I'm starting to think that this energy released through the Schumann resonances may be more important than just a magnitude 8.8 megaquake. It's speaking to the overall flow of energy through the solar system and how changes to that influence the overall flow of energy through the Earth. So now that we've had this magnitude 8.8, it's really like a domino unlocking a whole bunch of other energetic systems from that powerful seismic wave that it created. And of course, also don't forget all about the aftershocks. We had the magnitude 6.9 aftershock right immediately 1 minute after. We've had a whole bunch of magnitude 6s, hundreds of magnitude 5s. They've been migrating south-southwest towards Japan. And now we're seeing this double earthquake sequence, another aftershock with that 6.8, but also the bottom of the Pacific plate, showing that the entire plate right now is moving sympathetically together. So it's not just one part that's releasing this energy, it's the entire other side of the plate too, indicating a linked, coherent, in resonance system. And before all of this occurred, we had 4 days and 4 big waves of Earth resonance delivered to us via the solar wind or at least that is what the evidence indicates. So in a recent video, I talked about Gokul Ridge and the Gokul supervolcano system way up here in the Arctic Circle. The magnetic pole is located very close now to this entire system, and that is fundamentally where these field-aligned currents come in because they are flowing in from outer space and coupling in the auroral circuit. And of course, the dipole goes down exactly where that magnetic pole is vertical. So we've been having huge amounts of current pumped through the Earth, and now we are seeing these Earth changes unfold with this magnitude 8.8 megaquake. We've had a bunch of volcanoes erupt through Kamchatka now, 3 different volcanoes. One of them has never even had a historic eruption that's been recorded. Last one for that volcano is about 400 years ago. And then we also just recently saw Luatobi erupt in Indonesia, sending an ash column up 18 kilometers, that's 12 miles. And we have a big eruption about to unfold at Kilauea volcano. We saw a ton of earthquake activity recently at Mount Rainier. Other volcanoes in the Pacific Northwest are showing signs of unrest. Axial seamount off the coast of Washington and Oregon is also showing elevated signs of volcanic activity. We can go over to Italy, check out Campi Flegrei. Volcanic activity has been accelerating there. The last eruption back in 1538 CE. And there are other systems that are also very active. The entire GNC being a big volcanic mystery, effectively. And so these sort of powerful flows of energy through the planet are going to influence all these energetic circuits that exist within the crustal shell. And so all these volcanoes are outlet points for that flow of energy. I would not be surprised if you see some big things happen over the next 6, 12, 18 months, especially as a result of the planetary resonances that are unfolding at this moment in time. But the Ring of Fire seems to be really the central zone of energy focus at this moment in time, and I will keep you up to date with what is happening here and globally. If you subscribe to the channel, thank you all so much for watching. Again, I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Please smash that like button, help the channel grow, be a part of the community. We do a lot of very interesting things here. We talk science, we talk spirit, and everything in between. So if you like the sound of that, then please subscribe. And you can also go to www.earthevolution.com/store to check out all the all-organic herbal tea and coffee products that I offer, as well as earthing shoes, sandals, and boots at www.wildfreeorganic.com/store. Thank you all so much for your support. Wishing each and every single one of you well. Have a wonderful Sunday, and I'll see you all in the next video.